Welcome to The Wing, the emotional and financial health check you never knew you needed. We provide tangible solutions for young women to build emotional health and wealth on their journey from school to motherhood. This is the podcast for young women in Australia navigating the big stuff: life, money, and motherhood. From high school to first homes, babies to bank accounts, we take you on an interactive listening journey that helps you make smart, empowered decisions every step of the way.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to another episode of The Wing. We are going to cover off today on some personal stresses that sort of existed predominantly in the postpartum period, but also just in life in general. And I'm going to highlight what they actually were for me, the ones that stood out to be the most confronting and the most challenging for me to navigate, and what prompted me into a number of psychology sessions, but also how my mindset has changed on protecting my time and myself since those incidents. Oh, incidents, that's a bit of a strong word, but well, some of them were incidents. I did go to the hospital a couple of times. That's an incident. And what that looked like for me in terms of rebuilding the way I think, the way I protect my time, the way I protect my family's time, and how, I kind of needed to navigate that to move forward and not dwell on things in the past. But I'll start by explaining a bit of a story. So every couple of years, we've got a family reunion, and it's a great occasion to get together and see family members that don't normally see. I've not yet been to one, mostly because they're usually out of town, and the last 3 times I've been pregnant or have had a new baby or babies, and it wasn't something that was in my bandwidth to do. Now, I took this so seriously because it was something that I really wanted to be involved in. It's on Jake's side, so, beautiful family, nice big family. I feel like his uncles have been my uncles for my whole life, just really warm and cozy people. And it's sort of getting to a stage in our relationship where I kind of need to show face at this because, I've met everybody, pretty much everybody, I think, by this stage. We're kind of 7 years down the road now. But, it's just a one thing that just wasn't in my bandwidth to do. And maybe you've got an example of this yourself in your own personal journey. Maybe it's a Christmas lunch or a family dinner or a weekly family dinner or I don't know if it's an event or if it's something that you used to do that you are struggling to do now that you have a small person or small people to consider and look after. But the guilt that I had leading up to the most recent reunion and the stress that I inadvertently kind of put on myself was really difficult to navigate. I ended up actually landing myself in hospital, and this is where I think postnatal care is something that requires a lot of deep diving and a lot of research and a lot of attention, because I don't believe that hospital was actually the right place for me in that exact period of time. I was so stressed out about this reunion because we'd actually decided to go. Our daughter is 18 months old at the time. Our son was exactly 12 months younger than that. So he was 6 months old. We're in very strict sleep routines, very strict routine, I suppose, around eating, sleeping for the kids. So for us to, it's difficult enough at home having 2 little kids, and I have everything I need here. But the idea of picking all of that stuff up, taking it to a place I've never been, in this instance, it was a caravan park. And, I think it was about like a 6-hour drive away for us. So one way. We've never traveled a lot with the kids. We just being so little, and that there's 2 of them, it's not something that we have on our priority list for the short term. We have a long-term lens on travel, and that is we will get back into that when it's right for the kids and when it's right for us and when we're able to manage that, whether they come with us or they don't. On different occasions, it's just something that's not on our radar right now, and we're okay with that because we've bought the house that we wanted to live in, and we've created spaces here that feel like a holiday to us without having to leave. But life is hard enough when you've got new little people in your house and, you've got everything you need in one spot. But then the idea of picking all of that up and taking that somewhere to me just screams anxiety. So anyway, obviously there was some, I guess, not pressure, but well, probably a bit of pressure actually. And it was born out of excitement because, family members are really keen to see the babies and want to meet our son for the first time because a lot of them hadn't even met him. I mean, he was only 6 months old, so, there's still a lot of time, but, they're only that little for not very long. So we were, okay, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to go on this journey. As time got closer and closer, I think it was the Thursday before we were supposed to leave on the Saturday. And we were probably only going to go for 1 or 2 nights anyway, but over a 4-night sort of trip. And I was having abdominal pain, and that was the catalyst for me. And I remember just starting to get scared by it. And I just thought, oh my God, like, what is this? Is this appendicitis? Is this pancreatitis? What is this? Like, when you just go into an absolute spin because you feel something and you think that it must be something wrong. Anyway, I was supposed to do a play date that afternoon, and I couldn't go. I will rarely cancel. Period. But I will rarely cancel, particularly with the play date I was going to go and see. It just wasn't, I don't cancel unless I absolutely need to cancel, particularly last minute like that. Anyway, I messaged Mum and I said, can you please come over? And she wrote back immediately and said, because she'd always opened herself up and said, I'm there anytime you need, drop of a hat, 20 minutes away, I'll be there. And I thought, right. And I could feel myself starting to get really emotional and really scared. And, the kids were waking up soon. I just thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? So, and I knew Jake was at work until it was probably one of his auction nights. So it was like he was out of the picture. So anyway, Mum came. I was in awe. So I just burst into tears when she said, yes, she'd be here. And I just thought, oh my God, how lucky am I? This is just so overwhelming to have this support. Like, anyway, long story short, we rang the paramedics. They came, they assessed me. They said, yeah, look, the pain that you're getting is consistent with appendicitis. So we're going to need to take you in because we're not, can't leave you here if that's where this is headed. But keep in mind, I'm 6 months postpartum, so obviously nothing's really in its spot properly going on, and I'm panicking about that because I'm thinking, oh my God, they've taken out an organ during the Caesar and forgot to put it back, and we're just noticing now, just the crazy thoughts that went through my head, and I've got to make it to the reunion on the weekend, and I've got to do this and that. Just so much pressure from myself, pressure from the situation, just pressure. Anyway, taken away in the ambulance, and the lovely paramedics popped me into the hospital, and I was very well looked after. Mum was here with the kids. Jake got home. He took over. I'm pretty sure Jake's mum came by at some point as well. So it was all hands on deck here. Everything was completely under control, which was very lucky for me. Anyway, I got to the hospital, and I don't know if it was the morphine and the fentanyl cocktail that I'd had, or it was just a combination of everything. Anyway, I'm having tests, underway and whatnot. Anyway, Dad came and saw me at the hospital, but as he got there, I was being wheeled down one of the corridors in a wheelchair. I had a blanket over my head because I just couldn't stop crying. I was just absolutely inconsolable because here I am now, probably having a full-blown panic attack, being wheeled around the hospital like a invalid, essentially. That's what I was telling myself. I'd just gone and had scans. That's why they were wheeling me around. And brought me back to bed, and I was pretty unrecognizable. I even took a photo of myself, and I looked like I'd fallen flat on the pavement somewhere, or someone hit me really hard, just because my eyes were so puffy from crying. My face was all swollen just from being so upset, and I got back on the bed, and Dad, I pulled the blanket off my head, and when I arrived at the bedside, and he said to me, "Oh my gosh, Katey, I did not think that was you." And I was like, I could barely talk. I was hyperventilating and got into the bed, and he said, how are you feeling physically? And I said, oh, pain in the belly or whatever, but it seems to be under control. I've had a lot of pain relief and everything like that. And he said, I think this is a little bit more than physical pain. And that absolutely triggered me. That actually makes me want to well up right now because I lost it again. I mean, I was just in this state of continually losing it. And again, I said, I don't think the hospital was the right place for me at the time, but obviously that was the only place I knew that I could go. Really, I should have been checked into some sort of mental facility to help me manage these feelings of overwhelm that I just was completely unable to control myself. It had gone from being a physical ailment or physical concern to being a complete mental breakdown. So Dad stayed with me there in the hospital for a while, and anyway, the night went on and whatnot, and we I remember earlier, so like this wasn't the trip. I went in 5 days after I'd had our son and I had costochondritis, and the symptoms of that mimic a heart attack. So that's why I went in that night. And everyone was very doting on me. The paramedics are the best people in the world, by the way. They lovely, got me in there safely. The doctors were amazing. They like did all the tests and everything. They did actually suspect pancreatitis at that stage, but then ended up, oh no, sorry, that was the second stage. No, the first stage was the costochondritis, and that was a little bit of a longer visit, but everyone was completely doting on me then. But that was very much a physical thing. Anyway, this other visit that I'm talking about around the reunion was that I looked awful. I did not have that cute little postpartum glow about me that's nice and innocent and motherly and or anything like that. I looked like rat shit. I remember the doctor came in at 2 a.m. and said, Caitlin, your scans came back clear, so you can go home now if you want. And it's 2 a.m. It's on a Thursday or Friday morning. But then he said, I sort of just looked at him. He said, but you can stay until 7 a.m. until we get busy again if you like. And I was like, okay, all right, okay. So there's nothing wrong with me, so that's good. But what is wrong with me? Like, what's actually wrong with me? Like, my body's been scanned, I've had blood tests, there's nothing out of order. Why do I feel like this? Why? So trying to differentiate between the physical symptoms and the mental symptoms for me was almost impossible. And I didn't realize a lot of this until well after this episode of that I had with the hospital. I remember laying in that hospital bed thinking, I'll stay till 7 a.m. because I'll get an uninterrupted sleep. It's free and it feels like a hotel to me. How saying that out loud now to me is wild. I mean, I think our healthcare here in Australia is it's certainly a system that's helped me. But for me to be lying there fantasizing about how I'm going to spend 2 a.m. from 2 a.m. till 7 a.m. in that hospital bed in that quiet at that moment, well, not complete quiet, but quiet enough, was like an absolute luxury holiday for me. Now, it felt it felt like a hotel. I mean, aside from the old man that was snoring next to me and my blood pressure machine that was going off, when it tightens really hard on your arm, and then I fell, and every time I fell into a deep sleep, the machine would beep and go off because your oxygen levels drop when you go to sleep. So every time I'd just get into a deep sleep, and then the machine would be like beep, 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 beep. Oh, never mind, I'll wake up, that's fine. The nurse comes running in, she checks my blood pressure, and the process repeats, and that happens about every hour. But I would have rather have been there than been at home about to face my life and this weekend coming up. That is how low things got for me. That is how low I couldn't even be a part of my own life because it was too much for my brain to process. So if that paints a picture on just how dark and how low that postpartum period can get. And my story is not the worst story, I am sure. If you're out there and you're listening to this and you're nodding along or you've had a similar situation, my heart absolutely goes out to you because the trying to differentiate between what were my physical ailments and my seemingly mental ailments, it was really, really difficult and really impossible to understand that in the moment because I just didn't have the capacity to separate the two and fully understand what was going on. Now, I don't think we let anybody down. We obviously decided not to go. Well, I decided not to go, sorry. I think Jake ended up going, but he went for a shorter amount of time, but he did still go. And obviously with his family, so I was quite okay with being at home with the kids by myself. I was very comfortable in that shell. I just didn't want to step out of that shell. And that was the bit that was terrifying me. So Jake went, but then all weekend I've just got this overwhelming sense of guilt for not being able to go and so and so really wanted to meet the kids, or just the commentary, not from Jake in particular, but the commentary on, what a great opportunity that you've just missed. Like, good on you. You went and landed yourself in hospital, and that's where it's just taken the fun out of it for everyone. So all weekend I'm playing catch up. I had a lot of Jake's family members actually reach out to me and and, say, "We miss you, we wish you were there," like just lovely messages. And that was what was getting me by, because I thought, oh, yay, they don't hate me. Like, just I didn't want anyone to be put out by me not going. And I didn't, but then ultimately, everyone was going. Anyone who goes just goes because they can, or it works in with them. So I was no different. It just didn't work in with me this particular time. But having that kind of reassurance that no, it's okay that you didn't go. And hindsight, I look back and I think, oh my gosh, we still haven't taken our son anywhere, and he's just over 12 months now. I think he's about 14 months now, and I no desire to take him anywhere. I'm very, very happy in my four walls. I'm very, very happy exactly where I am, and I would not itch. If I want to go somewhere, I want to go to Coles, or I want to go to the chemist, or I want to go to the physio. Maybe I might also like to go to lunch with someone I haven't seen for a while. But these are not things I want to do every day. These are things that I do usually in my 24 hours off, my one day off a month. That's what I fill my day with. I fill my day with doing things that are local. They're easy. If they need to be cancelled, it's not a big deal. Or I don't have to book it all. I don't have to book to go to Coles. Little pockets of freedom that I'm able to find in other things at this particular juncture in my life and in our lives that bring me fulfillment, that don't require all of this, picking the kids up and going here, there, and everywhere for someone else. Whatever decision we make now, we make it on behalf of ourselves, and we're not trying to please other people. And I think the beauty of that is probably really within the friendships and the community of people around us that are in the exact same boat, having relationships with other young or new parents that are going through the exact same difficulties as us, or the same, restraints as us. It makes the whole situation a lot easier to navigate and feel a lot more supported in, because we know that it's not just us. We're not just alone. And the more you talk about this, or the more you talk about these situations where you're feeling really stressed or flustered or overwhelmed or sick, or the more you're talking about that with people around you, you'd be very surprised how many of them are going through a similar thing, or have been through a very similar thing. There's also sort of an evolution of where these away trips, I guess, because the away trips are the crux of my stress in any situation. But where it kind of evolved to was that I felt like I was becoming scared of my own feelings. So, how will I feel when Jake's away? Or how will the kids feel when Jake's away? Like that not knowing, or that not just that real feeling of unease where you just don't know how you're going to feel. So you tend to worry, or you go into a bit of a tailspin, or you just don't know what that is going to look like. And obviously for me, a trigger is a way thing, because I just want everyone to be together. But I know that that's not always possible. Being able to talk about that, and understand that it's natural, and that if you do feel uneasy when your partner's away, and that's a normal thing. For me, I'm just thinking Jake's mum was a single mum, and I just look to her and with just admiration, because I just think, what did she do? What did she do when she was having a mental breakdown? Like, what? There wasn't anybody coming home that night. There wasn't anyone, like, just like for me, I'm thinking I've just got to make it to, 5 o'clock, and then I know Jake will be home. Or I just got to make it to this time, and then I know Jake will be home. But like for the single parents out there, not having that end in sight is just completely overwhelming, I think. And, looking at the way that Jake's mum had handled that over years was very inspiring, because to me, I almost felt guilty, thinking like, well, how am I feeling this way? How am I feeling so, scared and overwhelmed and like one big sook, when Jake's just going on a work trip for one night to Sydney, or he's just going to see his family at the reunion for a couple of nights? How come I can't get away from that unease? And I think I worked through this with my psychologist in quite a lot of detail, but learning about what those insecurities are and being aware of them, and trying to fill those days with enjoyable activities that I know that I will be distracted with the kids, and that, trying to reassure you that, or reassure myself that it's not the end of the world, and it's an isolated amount of time. And, not to try and make a mountain out of a molehill. The main message that I want to leave you with, ladies, in this episode is that if you are feeling any certain way during your postpartum period, to not be afraid to speak up, lean on the help around you. If you have the headspace or capacity to reach out to services that are going to support you, whether that is the hospital, if it is something physical, whether that is one of the mental health support organisations that are associated with the hospital, whether that's a family member or a friend or a sibling, you have the power to control those conversations and the power to simply tell the people around you exactly how you're feeling, because the more you can communicate clearly on how you're feeling at a certain season of life, the more likely people are to understand you and support you rather than have an opposite effect. So hopefully by me sharing the deep, dark insights into a couple of trips to the hospital and some really uneasy and shaky ground that I just really honestly did not know how to navigate, I hope that that gives you the confidence that if this is something that happens to you in the future, that you're able to reach out to the right people and organizations, or if it's something that's already happened to you and you feel like you haven't properly processed it yet, then perhaps this is a conversation you can be having with a medical professional in your network that you are able to source and find and have a conversation with, or multiple conversations with, at any point in time. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and we look forward to catching up on the next pod.
Enjoyed the episode? Hit follow and check out _wingpod Oz on Instagram for a dose of wisdom getting you on the right path to success.